let's get right into it. Thanks, Kai. So one, I think, challenging part of the feedback we receive of attention requests is probably the most opaque, unless you go into the documentation to figure out how attention requests are automatically added and removed. And I think most of you have read that feedback, but anyway, I was reflecting on it today. I was talking also with Marcel about it. And we have a lot of confidence on many things of the feature. But as I wrote in the issue, we believe that we are optimizing for certain cases. So that's why we have the automated behavior. And the key here is what we believe to be. And I don't think we have enough evidence to back some certain automated behaviors. Those automated behaviors might make sense to us, but we don't have concrete evidence that they are the most helpful. And so I think the feature itself can still work and people can still get value out of it, a lot of it, just without the automated behavior for the most part. Let me actually bold most, so postpone most of the automated behavior. And I believe that the ones that I have high confidence is, auto requesting someone's attention if you add them as an assignee reviewer, so someone else. And that's the natural thing. Like if we're adding them, we want their attention. And surely there are edge cases where you're adding someone as an assignee or reviewer, but you don't want their attention to be requested. But I wonder, just how much of those cases are out there. And the second one is auto removing all attention requests when the MR is merged or closed. And that's it. Kai, you have your first question. Go ahead.
Yeah, your microphone is working. What about, so you've listed two that you feel like you have a high confidence on. There's significantly, I think, more than that in there. And so I think the obvious one to me is we remove your attention when you comment or perform an action, right? Because that logically, if I request attention from you and then you come and respond to that feedback, in theory, my attention is no longer required and yours is required, which is, I think, where we get to this piece of the confusing automated behavior about not being able to assign to yourself and to other people at the same time. I think that was sort of the big one, because that is sort of the crux of that. And so I'm wondering, do you want to keep that one? I guess, if we're going to cut, what you've listed two, but I think there's probably 5 or 6 things. And so I would like you to be incredibly explicit about which behaviors you would want to keep. If there's more than those two.
Yeah, just those two. So the other ones that we have baked in, approving and all of that, it's not that we don't have, there's a reason why we thought about them and we included them. And then we can find cases for all of them. I'm just wondering if it is not better to scale back this first iteration and learn from the actual usage and seeing how people use it, instead of immediately jumping the gun and having these automated behaviors. And those two that I listed there are, to me, the ones that I feel are the most obvious cases where you want to add the attention request or that you want to remove the attention request. The second one being the fact that we don't, the list, so the counter at the top, it only counts open merge requests. So it does not count merged or closed. So that's why it wouldn't make sense to remove the attention request there.
You said better to learn. Do you have a plan for learning? I guess I think my fear is, it sounds like you have a high level of confidence in a couple. You've got some level of confidence in others, right? That's why they were there to begin with. There's certainly, I would agree, potentially some other confusing states, but I think learning would be a challenge, right? Like there's not a good way to track or measure or know intent and anything in GitLab, let alone like review nuance. And so I feel like we're going to be left in a state that's sort of worse for a longer period of time without a strong opinion. And we'll be in the sort of, I think like forcing you to remove your own attention is very much the same place as forcing you to remove yourself as a reviewer that like GitLab adopted as a flow, right? Like that feels very similar in terms of like pain.
Yeah, it's not ideal, is what I would say. The hiccups that I've noticed is when you add yourself as a reviewer and assignee, it immediately adds the attention. And I personally think it makes a lot of sense, because if you're adding yourself, there's something that you need to do, right? So we're making that easy for you. But at the same time, there are valid cases where you don't want to immediately add the attention request. You know, for example, when you create a merge request, you're creating the merge request, you're in the form, and you add yourself as an assignee, and you also add other people as reviewers, and then you create the merge request. Would we add an attention request for you or not? And you could say, oh no, in that case we won't, because you're requesting someone's attention. But how sure are we that that's the right thing to do? And that would be another thing that, I mean, we would have to document as well as an exception. And yes, it wouldn't be ideal. And also the removal, it's the other case where I request someone's attention and it immediately removes an attention from me. How prevalent is that? Do you think that's really the vast majority of cases? That's what we want to happen when you request someone's attention or add someone as an assignee or reviewer? You're done, or do you want to keep doing things there? And I'm just not sure if we're confident enough on that to keep that behavior. And yeah, it's not, as I said, it's not ideal to have to go and remove your own attention, but I think it's better than what you have today of having to go there and remove yourself as an assignee and then add yourself as an assignee again, or as a reviewer. Yeah, we can debate how many clicks that takes, but you know, in terms of plan, I think, you know, we have that. It's not easy, but we would definitely receive feedback from the community, the issue tracker, and we would have to set up some interviews with folks after we have some time for people to use this with actual like real life cases. And we would not only interview GitLab team members, but we would also interview customers that use this frequently. And I think that would be the most reasonable way for us to approach this, instead of relying on, as I said, I don't think we have enough evidence to back some of our automated behaviors.
What is your like? I don't know how to phrase it. The confidence threshold is sort of the phrasing I want to use, but like, how unconfident are you, I guess, is my question. Like, to me, and I will say this, this feels like a pretty tremendous step backwards from what was released like 2 weeks ago, to remove these like little touches that make the like feature feel very complete in the way you use it. And like the experience that people had was signing up, you like ask someone for a review and it automatically sets their attention. And what you're saying now is sort of like, oh, well, we'd get rid of like all of these other pieces that make that attention sort of more logical and force users into doing two quick actions, or a quick action and a click on the UI sidebar, or figuring out like all these different things, because now you're asking about like sort of two different things, right? Like I've got to know, is it a reviewer and assignee? I also got to know the quick actions for attention requests, which are different from those. Like attention request was sort of like built in to that review flow process, and like taking all of these things out to me feels like a step backwards, and like a very unopinionated step from us, like that we don't know how we want the review flow to work, or how we want you to use it. Where I think we've been traditionally making more opinionated steps in code review about how we want features to behave and what we want review flows to be, and sort of those things. And I feel like this creates that weird situation. And I get like, we could go interview teams who use this. We're likely to interview 10 different teams, have 10 different opinions about whatever their workflow is, and not agree with any of them, because our own workflow is vastly different from those teams. And I think that's where I'm trying to figure out like, how unconfident are you in this? Like, is this, are you unconfident because you think it breaks workflows, or are you unconfident because you think these are the right decisions, but you have no way to like prove they're the right decisions?
I think it's, because it's not these things can work well for me, and I understand them, and I'm biased. So you could say I have confidence on those things for me, and I wouldn't need evidence. But I think that this may not be necessarily the way that works for most people. And yeah, and so I think, yeah, I'm just basically going to reiterate what I said. So I think we should. I understand that it makes the feature less useful, or it looks like it makes the feature less useful. But I mean, we're assuming that when people approve the merge request, they immediately want their attention request to be removed, which may or may not be the case. Or even when they add another user, which is really the one case that or the two cases that we've seen as the most problematic is you adding yourself as an assignee or reviewer. That's automatically adding an attention request. And when you add a new user as an assignee or reviewer, that's also removing your attention request automatically. Those are the ones that we've seen. And to me, as a user, that would make sense. I would not have a problem with that. But I guess we need more information about that.
What are the circumstances where, if you have an attention request to review a merge request, you do review it? Why would you still want your attention to be requested on that? Is that what you said?
Yes, that's the thing. Like, what is the moment that we undoubtedly can say, okay, I've done reviewing. And to me, that is connected with the second point that I wrote there, two other pieces related to attention requests, which is baking the handover process in the review flow. And right now I think we're making all of these assumptions because we're not baking into the review flow, and we're assuming that I left a comment, okay, I'm done reviewing, you can remove the attention request, or I've approved, I'm done reviewing, I'm going to remove the attention request. And that's because we don't have that baked into the review flow and intentionally saying, I'm done reviewing, you know?
I think that this is where I first got a little confused about attention requests like months ago. I guess I'm still not sure why like a real review experience, like I am requesting your review. So you get that review request and you perform the review, and it's like an object that it's got a beginning, a process, and then an end. And then when you're done, your task is complete. And then you don't need to necessarily hand it over. You just checked off what you needed to do. I don't know what I'm just kind of rambling here. I guess I'm not really sure how it's different. It feels a bit like we're merging that review experience with to-dos in a way. And it's getting more confusing if we remove some of those automatic pieces. Because if you do perform that review, the attention request should be gone theoretically, because if you are needed on a different part of it, then they can ping you on it, and then that's a to-do. But again, I feel like they kind of conflict with each other sometimes. I find it kind of confusing, some parts of this. And I wonder if like creating a review might solve some of this. I don't know. I don't have a summary here. I'm just talking.
No, I think, I mean, I know you brought the review experience piece up before, and I think there are other tools that sort of do this, where you outline what everyone's roles and responsibilities are on like each phase as part of it. I think this is a step towards that for sure. Like this is one of those things that like, if you set up a merge request, you could say these are the people responsible for reviews. And if we get smarter about how to like bring you in and take you out of that, like as part of this, then like that is steps towards creating that flow. I think those are larger lifts, and even iteration on attention requests was multiple milestones worth of work and sort of challenging. So I think that gets there. I'd also sort of like, I think Annabelle's question that maybe wasn't addressed was sort of like, if someone asks you to do a review and you do the review, like, why would we keep your attention like still on the item? Like, I get that maybe we don't know, but I think like we could probably generally logically assume that like you're done. Like you responded, or you like reviewed the code and went through the submit review process, or you commented, or you did something. And if that wasn't the case, I think optimizing, which is what I think you did to begin with. And so I'm unusual for you to backpedal this much, Pedro, I will say. So like, I think that's what you did. You optimized for what we believe to be the most logical and like linear path, and like the use cases we were targeting. And I feel like now you're saying like, well, I don't necessarily know if that's like everyone's use case. And so instead of us keeping an opinion, let's just take all the opinion out of it and let everyone have this sort of like, instead of maybe saying we've solved for 60 or 70% of people with our automation, I think taking any of the automation out at this point puts us in a position where it's like, well, 60 or 70% of you might have had a good experience before. Now we're down to like 20% because we don't know what the other 80% of you want. Like we're sort of like making this huge leap backwards for a lot of people in order to let other people like tell us in the future which might work for them. But I don't think we'll ever have a good consensus base based on what we know about reviews and approvals today. Like we know that no team works the same. Like we already like sort of have that as a data point. So I'm not sure what we'd learn in the future that would like trip us to trigger and say, we should automate this piece of it, right? Like there doesn't seem like there's going to be a threshold or anything there that gets us there. And it feels like we're stepping backwards to get there.
I think it's more reasonable to perhaps attach a automated behavior to removing your attention request if you submit a review. Perhaps I would think that would be more reasonable. As I think that's what you were saying, Annabelle. Like I did the review, I click submit review, I publish all of those pending comments. That would automatically remove the attention request from me. I think that's more reasonable, but it's still kind of opaque. And let me move some things around. So if I could go back in time, probably with knowing what I know today, what I would have probably done is, okay, let's first do what Annabelle was designing, of allowing you to approve when you submit a review. That would be the first thing. Then after that, we would bake the handover process of assigning, or in this case, reassigning when you're submitting a review. So that would help us, because that's something that people already do today, at least in GitLab, is, add, remove reviewers, and then the attention requests all baked into that. And in that way, it would all make sense, because when you are submitting a review, the handover process is transparent. It's there for you. You know what's going to happen. Also the approval, and also the summary comment, and all of that is there in front of you. And you know how all of that is going to pan out depending on what you're doing now. Whereas just with the attention requests, clicking the approve button or adding someone else, that is not immediately clear that is happening for you, unless you pay a lot of attention to what's happening. And so that's why I think that, and again, that's basically, I think we should, take a step back here and not have as much automation. As I said, it's not removing completely the automation. It's, I think, the most important piece is, when you request someone else's attention, it doesn't remove your attention. But I think that's at the expense of figuring things out better in the future, instead of optimizing for something that we don't know if it's really the most prevalent case. And Kai, you were saying, 60, 70, 80%. How sure are we? We don't know.
I think maybe not sure, maybe not, but I think I said this earlier, I think we have done a better job of having an opinion, and this feels like we've decided at this point at the 11th hour to not have an opinion. And that feels out of character, I think, for us as a group and how we've thought about this. So I think I've got a hard jump. I've got to go to a customer prep call, but I would like to talk about this more, and you're short on time, so maybe we can find a slot to do this more this week. I did leave one question, my last point D. Is your feedback here and your thought here a blocker to turning the feature flag back on and or releasing this? Because I think that impacts sort of what today and tomorrow look like in terms of doing that, given that we're back in a position to do that. And so I need to know that. And I think that gives me some flexibility. And if I schedule the removal work of the automation too, so we just need to know, I need to know that piece, and then we can figure out how to talk about this more. And I want to get to your point too as well. So maybe let's find some more time, but I need to jump now.
Okay. Let's do that then.
Okay. I will end, but that's going to stop the recording, but you guys are welcome to keep discussing if you'd like. So. Thanks, everyone.